Hello and welcome to Tarot for Our Times. This is Sarah, your medium on the go, and I'm going to try to make this a short one. I don't know how much I will succeed in that, but I've touched on this topic before. But I was watching a Midas Touch video earlier this morning, and the woman, I'm sorry, I forget her name, did it was pretty much focused around women, and I'm going to say notably white women who have voted for Trump in the past, and now that a lot of them have buyer's remorse. Now, it's centered around a post. I don't know if it was Twitter, or I think it may be Twitter or TikTok, by a woman whose name is, she goes by Blonde Patriot. So she begins it by pretty much saying she absolutely despises everything on the left. She hates women's reproductive rights. She gun control, that whole right-wing playbook. But she's had it with Trump and deeply regrets voting for him. And the responses were pretty rough, and pretty much saying, and it's true, these people have only expressed regret when it's touched their lives personally, and they basically don't give a shit about anybody else. And there is some truth to that, which is why a lot of them don't have a lot of sympathy for this. And in my comment, I pretty much said my feeling is that don't ask them to go into it. Just say good and give them resources to help elect progressive candidates if they want to put their money where their mouth is, and just don't antagonize them, don't deal with them. But at any rate, it brings up this whole thing, like a theory that I have had since which got even stronger the last election, is pretty much about what would make these women vote for Trump. And I call it the white woman Stockholm syndrome theory. And that pretty much says that not all, I have to be careful of saying, and this, of course, is since I'm not a psychologist, although I did check it out with a friend of mine who's a medium and a psychologist, that a lot of these women, for entertainment purposes only, are in abusive relationships, and by their supporting Trump, and some of them they're triple Trumpers, it pretty much validates the abusive relationship they're in, because they're seeing a very magnified version of their partners who got to be president, and it keeps them pretty much justifiably stuck, if their self-justification of being stuck in these relationships. So as we move along with the death card, and there is, where is she? I would say this is represented by, well, get it real close up, by this woman that's next to the child. And we refer to that as the martyr. That that whole thing has to go. And part of one of the theme that I've been trying to do around these readings for about the past month, I guess, or since the beginning of the month, is basically in order to transform yourself, you can't be in abusive relationships, and you cannot be voting for toxic people who have their regime just jam-packed with drunks and codependents and Stepford wives and all kinds of everything that's wrong with our country. And this Blonde Patriot sounds like she probably fits into that, and I would not be surprised if, like various cabinet members, she did have that police blotter description of Ivanka. Whoa, isn't that kind of creepy when you look at Pam Blondie and what's her name? Oh yeah, and Levitt in in the regime. So at any rate, I really want to take a deeper look into what's going on here, and also maybe how do we deal with people like this, because this woman that mediated this Midas touch said they really need to get therapy. And she just wasn't referring to the women, but all these people that supported him. And I pretty much said at the end of my comment, talking about this theory of women, is that it just only took one or two sentences to say that a lot of the Maga men are either abusers, or they have been or they're mama's boys that hate women. So if they're not abusers, they would wish they had had the guts to be abusers. So those are pretty much the two categories the way I see them, Maga men. So we're talking about people in dire need of therapy. So as the secondary, I feel like I need to cut that. There's a secondary card for this reading that goes with the death card is oh, well, this is hopeful. Three of Wands upright is that maybe if some of these women, I don't think the soul searching comes right. It doesn't come very fast. But when they do get to the soul searching part of this, I believe what happens is that they're looking to see the kind of future that they have. And maybe in some of this regret about this will be the next step is to leave that and to get the help that's needed. So I haven't done this in a long time, so I feel as though I need to pick a quickie oracle card about this. So there's a lot of female energy in this deck. So let's see what we have here. Let's see, sitting right on top here. Oops, just the wisdom of the oracle. Oops, the cover card. So we have truth. Oh boy, you can't make this stuff up. Okay, but that's a beautiful one too. And there are very interesting. Let me get these back in here. Okay. Interesting thing is that there are two women on the front of this, and I believe that maybe I'm going to say I see that a lot of families have broken up. It's been like the Civil War around this, and I'm going to say that I think one woman close to the other is telling her that her political choices reveal the abusive relationship in which she's in, that she thinks that nobody else knows about, that everybody does. So that is truth speaking, and it kind of almost seems like they're in an intervention. Yeah, they're, and then you have that third eye, the eye of opening your eyes. So, as I say, you cannot make this stuff up. Okay, so what I want to see, I just want to do a regular read on this. Keeping death and the Three of Wands. I also feel, I do feel as though, as far as his health goes, I keep getting March. Now that could change as a turn for the worse. Checkout time. I'm kind of thinking it might be checkout time. And usually good, bad, ugly deaths, or especially as someone that's a national leader, can lead to a lot of self-reflection. Could also be bringing back various traumas to people that may be thinking about the death of dear old husband or dear old dad. who abused them. Okay, so let's see. Alrighty. So let's see what have we got here. Just give this a quick shuffle. You know, this is so I pretty much have stated my theory, backed up by some people that know about this stuff more than I do, is that there is an abused woman syndrome around these MAGA people. Now, there were the dipshits that went out and voted for him supposedly over the price of eggs, and that might be another category. But I think that there's some abuse. That to me, that's an excuse. There's probably some abuse there. And this comes at all levels. This goes from the mansions to the trailer parks. So there's not one class of person that I think it's all distributed pretty equally. Okay, so what do we have here? Oh, Nine of Swords in reverse, which is about not worrying anymore. That's the thing, is that once women get through this fear of the repercussions of leaving or ending it, and get to a safe place or cut off ties altogether, there is a feeling of relief that they haven't anticipated. So, I don't know if any of these red hat dames are, capable of self-reflection. I'm kind of hoping that it is a wake-up call. But let's see the King of Swords. Okay. King of Swords, he's about truth. And it's a male energy, and if I put it in current events in this day and age, that's the Jack Smith card. This is all, it always comes back to Epstein. He said a lot of things about January 6th, but he is part of a, in his international work with the money laundering. With money laundering, there's often, human trafficking behind it. And, Russia's got a pretty big corner on that market. So I get a sense that it's some Jack Smith revelations come out, and I think that there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. I think that this is going to hit a lot of these ladies, and the ones that have gone through. I mean, there's the ones that go through the emotional abuse, which is probably the majority of them. But I'm going to say, if underneath all of these levels, which is not too surprising, that there's a history of childhood abuse by a family member or, a priest or somebody else trusted, this could come all to the surface. So I think I'm starting to get a little bit more compassion here. So underneath that is to get out of the self-imposed prison of martyrdom. Walking away emotion. I'm telling you, I shuffled this deck. Walking away emotionally from some of this. And perhaps these women that are showing the buyer's remorse, that could be a step towards them getting out of the relationship, or maybe they have and they're seeing it from a different perspective. And, well, speaking of Russia, because this is all, because I am putting in current events with all of this. The weakened Russia in reverse, Mother Russia is weak. And to me, with the Jack Smith card and everything, that pretty much tells me that this is all related with this news coming out, I think, and women. I think the thing is, and I've addressed this before, with the women who were abused in the Epstein thing and were trafficked and everything, when it's a funny thing, because this goes back to Dr. Lena saying, I guess almost a year ago, and I did a reading about that, was that courage is contagious. Once those women opened up, even the ones in the emotional abuse, or said like, thank God mine wasn't as bad as that, they will have more courage to come out and speak. So maybe I'm shouldn't be so hard on Blonde Patriot. Isn't that weird? That's weird for me, I'll tell you. Okay, so in opposition we have the Devil in reverse. Opposing this is, staying in an abusive, addictive, codependent relationship and making it okay by going Maga. It's like an addiction. All of this comes back to addiction. And it's people don't realize how hard it is for these ladies to leave. But with the Devil in reverse, it's either going to be he's on steroids getting worse, or you get out of it before it gets worse. So it's the choice. I think with all of this coming up, it's almost like it's getting in their faces and they can't help but to think about this. So now comes the fun part on the conscious level. And this is and I am thinking a Blonde Patriot, the ones who say, I'm not going to be a liberal, but I'm done with him. So let's see what's going on with them and the conscious level. Okay. Here we go. On the conscious level, Justice in reverse. I think this is a very discouraged group because in their personal lives, they're going to say, he's been getting away with this for years. Is this ever going to catch up with him? And I think that by their publicly coming out and saying, boy, am I sorry, and throwing their red hat in the barbecue, they're saying, yeah, well, I can do this even though I don't have any power. I can do this, but knowing Justice in reverse is saying, it's not on your time, dearie. It's on the universe's time, and it does catch up to them. So that's their way of saying, I'm going to do this is my first act of rebellion. On the subconscious level, it is the fear of leaving the normal. Being absolutely miserable, being stuck in this, but they're still afraid. I mean, the first step is maybe with their vote and saying they don't like him anymore. But the second thing is that deep down inside, they don't want to, even though it's a horrible life, it's in their comfort zone, but also taking a look back and say, what would have been had I not been in this? So deep down inside, there is a conflict. And this, I am in agreement with the readers who say, the Five of Cups is the minor arcana of our journey into 2026. So this is what the struggle is. So in the past of all of this, we have the Seven of Swords, and this is pretty much kind of like he's getting ready to swipe the swords, but I would say this is the beginning of them not buying maybe choosing, looking at all these swords represent the gaslighting and the promises that they get, and he's being a little bit apprehensive, like, oh, which lie am I going to choose? So I would say maybe that's where the men are at, and the women are, or the person being abused is saying, which one is he going to pick up and try to stab me with today? Is the flowers and I'll never do it again, or oh, I didn't mean it, all that stuff. Okay. that's kind of in the past, the repeating pattern. And it's also the way that Kanks has been gaslighting us. Like, oh, what is it going to be today? Will I go back to the sharks? Will I go back to Somalia? Or maybe I'll pick if I get picked two, that's all the wars that I've started. Oh, it's just endless. But it's a very parallel thing to what the abuser does to the abused wife, and they repeat it, and they eventually people do reach a limit. So what do we have here in the present? We have the Three of Pentacles. So in the present, I would say these women are trying to maybe cut a deal with the abused husband in the last ditch attempt to stick around. But unlike this deck, there aren't the three people. He's talking to nobody. He's carrying this burden, and there's nobody there and nobody listening. So this is where a lot of where they're at now, but it is a beginning. So going a little bit into the future with the After Tarot. Okay. We have, again, this is, now this one is interesting. Now this guy has been trying to sell, let's watch each other's hands, yada, 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 and I'll do that, you get my support if you bend the knee. And this is pretty much showing, like, I don't think they're walking, they're saying, nah, they're still there. Nah, we're not buying it. So this is pretty much saying that people, these MAGA women are saying, no, we're not quite buying it. I think a driving force, it's not only getting out of their abusive relationships, that I think, or what I'm getting is that it's you can look at Margie, Representative Margie, who, she was all on board with Trump. But this Epstein thing, as I've said before, I won't get specific, but I would say this kind of abuse has touched her life, in some way. And sometimes all you need is somebody very close to you, or maybe a close call, and you said, oh, no, or whatever. But I would say that this is why they're going to be walking away, because the memories come back, and as they look at the mess they've made of their lives, or maybe they live in a superficially decent life with some prosperity, but when you get behind the closed doors, there's nothing they can do right for that jerk that they're living with. And, maybe getting humiliated at the table, Christmas table. The holidays are really big for that. So going into the future, they may just not be buying what is being sold. And the undercurrent is Epstein. And this also, the subconscious thing of maybe past childhood abuse that they can't get over. So these cards have a lot of different meanings. So let's going even more a little bit into the future is the King of Wands. So he's usually a pretty inspiring guy on the surface, but he's put his, okay, so this is the guy who has, and a lot of these people that, the ones on the higher strata of society have these husbands who on the surface are leaders, inspiring people. There's probably a bunch of them in Congress, and, so during the day they hold the wand, and everybody like, woohoo, we're on fire. But then as soon as the day is over and they get inside their house, they set aside, and they're They're no longer that person. Okay, I can hang this up with my coat, and that is it. So as the people are becoming women or men who are in abusive relationships are becoming aware of that. So I'm going to say that although they can't quite let go of that MAGA stuff, that by not only saying that they're discouraged by him, but going very public about it, what this reading is telling me is that this is pretty much step one in, maybe booking out of these relationships. Now, it may be next week, it may be next year, but that's what's going on now. So I want to see how they see themselves. And I'm thinking blonde patriot. How do they see themselves? Because there's a lot of her out there. I mean, they've been out there since the day after election. Okay, so what do these blonde patriots think of themselves? Okay. Interesting. They're finally seeing they've been left out in the cold. Now, a lot of them are too young to remember, because this goes back to my day, about when women couldn't get a credit card under their own name, when a girlfriend and I were, when I was living in New York, we wanted to get a drink at the bar at the East Side terminal that took us to, I think to JFK, because we were flying up to Montreal for the weekend. And we had our suitcases. We were in our office clothes. We were just going to grab a quick drink. And no, we couldn't sit at the bar. He would not. This is New York City back in the 70s. We were not allowed to. They don't remember that stuff. They do not remember it. But they're starting to see that, well, all of that great stuff is going on inside. The only time they're inside is to be arm candy, which is abusive. So they're basically left out in the cold. So this is pretty much how they're starting to see themselves. And of course, they've made it, maybe there's a bit of narcissism. They've made it all about themselves. And if they hadn't made it all about themselves, they probably, couldn't at this point. Maybe they will. At this point, they really don't care about migrants being swept off to concentration camps and all that sort of thing. Okay, so that's how they're starting to see themselves, left out in the cold, but not in that populist 10-year ago thing about the stuff that Kanks was trying to sell. But now they're feeling as though they were left out in the cold by men like him. Then this is the big betrayal. How do others see them? This is going to be interesting. Okay. Others are starting to see them as the Seven of Cups in reverse, which is about, so someone's stripping off the illusion and the veil from them. Of course, it has to be, and this is since it's cups, it's a very emotional thing. Now, it's an emotional thing when you have to cut back on buying groceries and stuff, but it is coming from a very emotional place, because I have seen these videos of the FAFO ladies that go back a year ago before he was even in office. First, they were crying because their more enlightened family members they didn't want to have them around for Thanksgiving, and we're cutting them off. But as time has gone on, that maybe the illusion of being married to the MAGA men, they're very unhappy, even if they've been given all the material things. I'm thinking of that young woman who looked like you could see the background. She had a very nice home, and her mother and grandmother did not want her for Thanksgiving because grandma was going to get cut off of her Medicare. And so she's there crying, trying not to cry and everything, and the kids are in the background. And you can tell from the house and everything that she's probably married to some guy with money. This is what I'm psychically getting. Married to some guy with money who just showered her with everything, has a couple of kids now. But she may now be waking up to the fact that I think he was a little bit older and realized that she was a trophy wife. And of course he likes Trump because he's probably some kind of schmucky dude that doesn't want to pay more taxes and probably treats her like kind of like a piece of furniture, and maybe he's getting something on the side. So is this real? Of course, I'm saying this for entertainment purposes only. So what I'm seeing this is that now that the illusions of the nice house and the clothes, and she had a really nice manicure too. I was checking out her nails. So all of that sort of thing. And now realizing that they're totally meaningless because her husband's sort of like this cold. And that's a form of abuse too. It's like realizing you're a trophy wife and Pat, now there, dear. Your opinions don't matter. All this kind of stuff. So got this going on. And so there's a lot of disillusioned women. Maybe the poorer ones realize that maybe they're getting abused economically and he's not bringing home as much of the paycheck, or now they have to go out to, or whatever it is. So, this does go back to Trump. I really do see this as maybe an act of rebellion. You know, they feel like they're powerless in so many ways about rebelling against them. Too bad they didn't do it at the ballot box in November. But that's what I'm seeing. So I want to push these aside and do a little bit of a... I think what I'm going to do so I can have a pretty full deck here is I'm going to use this other one here and see... I'll even put Death and the Three of Wands back in here. And just do a little read on the conclusion of this. Let's see. The conclusion of this is... Wowie! 6 of Swords in reverse. They're going nowhere. This is a realization that in their lives... And they're putting up with this, that there's no more, they're not going anywhere. There's no justification. There's no emotional or spiritual growth like this is. And they're just mired in these rough waters. Okay, so we got this. The energy is, as they get together with, see, this is the whole thing. As they get together with other women who finally have the courage to be honest with themselves, that there could be a circle of support, and maybe that may, it's like they do need to have women around to get the courage to do this. Other women who say, oh, well, now that it's hit me, this is no good. So let's see, what do we have here? Oh, wowie. Ace of Cups in reverse. I would say big emotional crisis. Big time emotional crisis. This kind of goes back with that, it kind of goes back here with that Five of Cups. Five of Cups. But now they're expressing. We got a lot of cups in reverse. Swords and cups. Swords of truth and cups with emotions. And I might want to say they may have been stepping it up with drinking a little too, going out with the girls and drinking a little bit too much, which is, this is a way that, women in these situations do react. Then we have the Hermit. So a lot of them have been pretty isolated because that's what these guys like to do. But someone has switched a light on. Now, at this point, it's probably totally self-serving. I want to say this is a beginning. We may not want to embrace them quite yet, but I am seeing this as a beginning. And then Ace of Swords in reverse is what this is telling me is that they're going to have to reach a point where they stop lying to themselves, to each other, and to themselves. So, I thought this was going to be a short one, but this is a very, very complex psychological thing. So I would say that the way I'm feeling and looking at all of this, I think those of us progressive women and those that have been really, in this struggle for a long time, some of us for over 50 years now, that the whole thing is like, it's okay if we don't want to embrace them because maybe they kind of like need to be with each other and hopefully work their way through. Now, it could very well be that some of them next, come November, will vote for the Democratic candidates and then maybe go back and maybe still be in the Stockholm syndrome. So, but a number of them are eventually going to be seeing the light. This is what it may take a long time, but I will say that those of us that have been really in this for a long time, we don't need to embrace them, or if you have a boundary about even being around them, that's one thing. If you feel like maybe, there's nothing complete black and white, that, that's okay. I would say the thing is, maybe you don't want to antagonize them and very gently say, I hope you realize that this is a little bit more about other people than yourselves. And the fact is that light bulb could possibly go on if, in this card, they start talking to other women in similar situations. And that's the beginning of the end of this whole self-absorbed thing. Like, well, we'll only make changes when it affects us. When they see this a little bit more collectively, I'm seeing that there could be some hope and that maybe I'm not ready to be around them, but I, after looking at this, maybe have a little bit of compassion. I'm still kind of angry, but have a little bit of compassion, let's say at an arm's length. So that's it for me. I'll be tuning in soon because I'm getting a lot of ideas. So I hopefully will be back with you before we chime in the new year. If we don't, Happy New Year, but I'm going to really try to do New Year's Eve. Okay, bye everybody. Bye-bye.